Hi there, I'm Sapper Woody, and today's video is going to be a little bit different from most of the videos I've done before. I have a message I'd like to get out to the world, a positive, encouraging message, trying a little bit of motivation here, and this type of format seemed the best way for me to do so. So throughout this video, I want you to know I'm going to be uh, referencing the Christian Bible, but I think this word of encouragement is going to be good for you, and it's going to resonate with you no matter if you are a Baptist, a Buddhist, a Catholic, a Mormon, LDS, or even an atheist. I think this motivational message will be good for you, and you can get something from it. If you find this video encouraging, then please feel free to share it. But to start, I'm going to begin this with an excerpt of a poem entitled Race. Now, this is not mine. I did not come up with this. This is attributed to someone named Dr. D.H. Broberg, and I'm not sure if that is a man or a woman. From the contents of the poem, I would assume it was a man, because this is a poem about a young boy's race. We're going to begin with the beginning here, and it goes as follows. Whenever I start to hang my head in front of failure's face, my downward fall is broken by the memory of a race. A children's race, young boys, young men, how I remember well, excitement sure, but also fear. It wasn't hard to tell. They all lined up so full of hope, each thought to win that race, or tie for first, or if not that, at least take second place. Their parents watched from off the side, each cheering for their son. Each boy hoped to show his folks that he would be. Whistle blew, and off they flew like chariots of fire to win. To be the hero there was each young boy's desire. One boy in particular, Dad was in the crowd, was running in the lead and thought, my dad will be so proud. As he speeded down the field and crossed a shallow dip, the little boy who thought he'd win lost his step and slipped. We're going to come back to that. We're going to continue that at the end of the video, and I do hope you'll stick around to hear the conclusion. We're not going to be here very long. I'm going to try to fit this within just 4 or 5 minutes. We'll get right back to the rest of that poem. It's a powerful, powerful poem. But for now, we're going to look at a passage of Scripture, and don't feel like you need to follow along in the Bible. But I'm going to be reading from the book of Proverbs, chapter 24, and the first part of verse 16. It says, for a just man falleth 7 times and riseth up again. You know, that is a beautiful passage and beautiful wording. But this message, this motivational message that I'd like to get out there for you today, I'm going to call it What to Do When You Fall. We look at that verse in Proverbs, and the first thing that jumps out at me is there's no qualifier for the just man falling. It just says, for a just man falleth. It doesn't say if a just man falleth or anything like that. It just says, for a just man falleth, yet riseth up again. To me, this says that we are going to fall. It's going to happen. Not if we fall, but we all will fall in some way, shape, or form. Whether it be a mistake that we make, whether it be, a promise that we break, whether it be straying from our diet that we had carefully planned out, or whether it's just allowing our emotions and our emotional baggage to catch up to us and get us into that depression, we all will fall at some point. If you don't fall, you never had anything fall from. All of us are human. All of us make mistakes. We all break promises, do things we said we weren't going to do, whether that promise was to someone else or to ourselves. We all do things we said we weren't going to do, or we don't do things we said we were going to do. So all of us are human. We're going to fall. And so I'll say it again. if you never fall, you never had anything to fall from. The question is, what do we do when we fall? Well, I have a few things that we shouldn't do before I get into what we should do. And believe me when I say that this motivational message here, this inspirational message, is just as much for me as it is for anybody that may be watching this video. First thing you shouldn't do is do not dwell on your failure. If we go ahead to the New Testament, the Apostle Paul in the New Testament says, "But this one thing I do, forgetting those things which are behind and reaching forth unto those things which are before." As a meerkat and a warthog once said, you've got to put your past behind you. Now, I bring this up first because I know this is the hardest thing to do right here, to not dwell on your failure. When we fall, it's easy to look at the other times we've fallen, every mistake, every failure, everything in our past. Now, I can attest that leaving the past in the past is no small task. As many of you know, I have been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder from my time deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan. So if anyone knows how hard it is to get over the past, I do. This is the area that I personally struggle the most in, and so I can empathize with you watching this video out there right now. You who are saying it is easier said than done, because you're right. It is easier said than done. But in order to move forward, we have to look forward. You can't drive a car while looking out the back window, because then you will crash and then you will spiral even further. So if you fall, don't dwell on your failure. Next, don't place the blame on someone else. Now, you may have had it rough. You may have had a hard time. Someone may have caused you great pain in the past, but that is the past. Right now, if you fall, or if I fall, it is because I slipped. I tripped. It is because I allowed myself to get into that negative space. It is because I said I would do something and I didn't do it. It is because I, me, myself, that is the reason that I have slipped, fallen. If you're lying down in the mud and you blame others for being down in the mud, you will have a much harder time climbing out of that mud. What you are doing is reaching for a foothold on someone who's down in the mud with you. And you won't get out until you start moving yourself, until you decide, hey, I don't like it here in the mud. And then, as I said before, begin moving forward. So if you fall, don't blame others. Next thing is, if you fall, don't whine. Whining gets you nowhere. The only thing whining does is push people away, people that can help you get out of where you are. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying don't talk about your issues to others. Sometimes that is the very best thing you can do, whether it be a friend, whether it be a family member, whether it be a therapist, somebody that you can talk these issues out and you can vent them, you can hear them out loud. People can act as a sounding board. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not saying don't get those issues out in the open and then have other people give you feedback. What I am saying is don't just sit there and complain. If you're in the mud, don't complain about being in the mud and then just stay in the mud. Don't gather your friends and then have a pity party about how bad you have it in the mud. Don't wallow in the mud. Pigs wallow in the mud. Paupers wade and work in the mud. Princes and princesses wipe the mud off their boots. So it's up to you. Do you want to be a pig, a pauper, or a prince in your situation? If you fall, don't. Now that leads us to, what do we do when we fall? We've looked at several things. What don't we do? Now, what do we do when we fall? The answer is easily stated, but much, much, much harder to implement. I take you back to the proverb, for a just man falleth 7 times, yet riseth up again. You see the answer right there. Again, it's easy to say. When you fall, you rise. The measure of a person. This is not necessarily original with me, but I want to get this thought across right here. The measure of a person is not how many times they fall. It is how many times they get back up. That bears repeating. The measure of a person is not how many times they fall. It is how many times they get back up. So now I'm going to go back and we're going to finish the poem began with. And start it from the beginning again. Whenever I start to hang my head in front of failure's face, my downward fall is broken by the memory of a race. A children's race, young boys, young men, how I remember well. Excitement, sure, but also fear. It wasn't hard to tell. They all lined up so full of hope, each thought to win that race, or tie for first, or if not that, at least take second place. Their parents watched from off the side, each cheering for their son, and each boy hoped to show his folks that the whistle blew, and off they flew like chariots of fire. To win, to be the hero, there was each young boy's desire. One boy in particular, whose dad was in the crowd, was running in the lead and thought, my dad will be so proud. But as he speeded down the field and crossed a shallow dip, the little boy who thought he'd win lost his step and slipped. Trying hard to catch himself, his arms flew every place, and amidst the laughter of the crowd, he fell flat. As he fell, hope felt couldn't win. Humiliated, he just wished to disappear somehow. But as he fell, his dad stood up and showed his anxious face, which to the boy so clearly said, get up and win that race. He quickly rose, no damage done, behind a bit, that's all, and ran with all his mind and might to make up for his fall. So anxious to restore himself, to catch up, and to win, his mind went faster than his legs. He slipped, fell again. He wished that he had quit before. I'm hopeless as a runner now. I shouldn't try to race. But through the laughing crowd, he searched and found his father's face with a steady look that said again, get up and win that race. So he jumped up to try again, 10 yards behind the last. Fell again. Feet. He lay there silently. A tear dropped from his eye. There's no sense running anymore. 3 strikes, I'm out. Why try? I've lost, so what's the use, he thought. I'll live with my disgrace. Then he thought about his day. Get up. An echo sounded low. You haven't lost at all. For all you have to do to win is rise each time you fall. Get up. Echo urged him on. Get up and take your place. You were not meant for failure here. Get up and win the race. So up he rose to run once more, refusing to forfeit. And he resolved that win or lose, at least he wouldn't quit. So far behind the others now, the most he'd ever been, still he gave it all he had and ran like he could win. 3 times he'd fallen stumbling, 3 times he'd rose again. Too far behind to hope to win, he still ran to the end. They cheered the boy who crossed the line and won first place. Head high and proud and happy, no falling, no disgrace. But when the fallen youngster crossed the line in last place, the crowd gave him the greater cheer for finishing the race. And even though he came in last with head bowed low, unproud, you would have thought he'd won that race. To listen to the crowd. And to his dad, he sadly said, I didn't do so well. To me, won, his father said. Rose, each time fell. Now when things seem dark and bleak and difficult to face, the memory of that little boy helps me in my own race. For all of life is like that race with ups and downs and all you have to do to win is rise each time you fall. And when depression and despair shout loudly in my face, another voice within me says, get up and win the race. It's a lovely poem. Again, it's not mine, but that is attributed to a Dr. D.H. Groberg. Every time I read it, I tear up a little bit. I think of all the issues that I've had in my life and the ups and downs. But I want to leave you with this positive message. I don't know who you are. I don't know what you're going through, but I do know this. You were not meant for failure here. Get up and win the race. Hopefully this has been an encouragement to you, and like I said at the beginning, if it was, or if you know somebody who it would be to, feel free to pass it on, and I hope this was a help to someone out there. As always, I'm Sapper Woody, and it's been fun.